A very good morning, friends. Today we will be discussing a very important topic. The topic will have a long lasting impact on you. This is from the book The Second Brain, the Tiago Forte, written by Tiago Forte. He says, how many brilliant ideas have you had and forgotten? How many insights have you failed to take action on? How much useful advice have you slowly forgotten as the years have passed? We feel a constant pressure to be learning, improving ourselves, and making progress. We spend countless hours every year reading, listening, and watching informational contents, and yet, where has all that valuable knowledge gone? Where is it when we need it? Our brain can only store a few thoughts at any one point of time. Our brain is for having ideas, not storing them. Our brain is for ideas and not storing them. This made me realize that we should have this video so that it appeals to our viewers that we have a second brain. So let us start how we can build up the second brain. Building a second brain is a methodology for saving and systematically reminding us of the ideas, inspirations, insights, and connections we have gained through our experience. It expands our memory and our intellect using the modern tools of technology and network. The first one is borrowed creativity. The 10 fundamental principles of building a second brain so that you can also maximize your productivity and creativity. The first one is borrowed creativity. The second one is capture habit. The third one is idea recycle. The fourth one is project over categories. Then the fifth one is slow burns. The sixth one is start with abundance. The seventh one is intermediate packets. The eighth one, you only know what you make. The ninth one is make it easier for your future self. The 10th one is keep your ideas moving. Now let us start understanding each one in a detailed manner. The borrowed creativity. The first principle is borrowed creativity. The idea is that we all intuitively think of creativity as a kind of creating original stuff, but not always. Creativity is also about remaking stuff. It is about taking ideas that already exist based on the things that you read, watched, and listened to, and then adding your own spin to them and sort of combining the things in an interesting way. And that is what creativity is. It is like what Pablo Picasso famously said that a good artist copies, but the great artist steals. And this is one of the key ideas of building a second brain. It is the idea that if you have all of little bits that resonates with you from all the stuff that you read, watch, and listen to, if you have all that in one place, it becomes a lot easier to start putting the things together and to start seeing connections that you would not have been seen before. Whereas if you try and do that all in your head, it does not work very well in comparison. So first thing you understood the borrowed creativity is that the ideas which you see, the ideas which you watch has to be captured at one place. Now we'll go to the second habit, that is the capture habit. The secondly, we have got the capture habits. This is the fundamental part of productivity. It is based around the idea that our brains are for having ideas, not for storing them. So, whenever we got at any sort of ideas, whenever anything resonates with us in any way from anything in life, even if we have just walking down the park, or if we have in the shower, or if we were listening to a podcast, we want to capture that idea as soon as possible, because our brain are not going to hold on to it for a very long period of time. For example, most of the brilliant ideas are realized in the shower, but so often we forget them by the time we are out of the shower. So, a good solution should be to have a waterproof notebook on the window still next to the shower. So, if there is any idea flowing, capture it right there and then, because your brain sometimes is a dumb ass and it does not going to hold on to that idea for a very long time. So we have to capture our ideas uh, in a systematic way. The basic thing is that wherever you go, if an idea comes, have a notebook and pen, capture it so that you don't forget at the later part of it. Then the third one is idea recycling. Idea recycling is the third principle, and the main view here is that the ideas are not a single use, but we can actually recycle the ideas and reuse them over time. And so, one of the things we want to do is our second brain. Whatever note taking app we are using for it is, we want to keep the track of all the stuff that we are creating and all the ideas that we are using for the certain projects, because we can just reuse those ideas for others and for me. Whenever I now um, make a blog post, finish a project, or solve a problem, all that goes right into my second brain, because I know somewhere down the line I'm gonna want to recycle, reuse some of this that information, and then it means that I have got this building block already that I can then build other things out of, which makes the entire process infinitely easier. The fourth one is project over categories. The fourth principle is the idea of projects over categories, and this is one of the things that I really learned early on. I learned from this book. I used to take notes in the past, but would categorize the things in terms of category. Like, if I saw an interesting thing about technology, I would put it in a technology folder in the Notion, or if I saw an interesting thing about the motivation, I would put in the motivation folder. But that then I would end up when with this sort of folders with lots of notes in them and did not really have anything to do with them. Now I think of it more in the terms of projects, and so if I capture an idea firstly, it goes into my I kind of general capture information, but then I will try my best to associate it to some kind of projects that I am going currently working on, because then the information is going to be directly useful rather than in just sitting in the bookmark folder that I am never going to look at again. Slow burns. The fifth principle is slow burn, which is really important aspect of the personal productivity, is that most of the things I do are slow burns rather than heavy weights, heavy lifts. So on one hand, we have got the heavy lifts. If the image you want to write a book or you want to learn a new technology, you will sit down and do all the work for it in a small amount of time, and that will be like your heavy lift. On the other hand, the idea of the slow burn, which is a big part of the building a second brain methodology, is that we have this list of projects that we have working on, and they are all kind of on the slow burner, but you would should not be sitting down and kind of blushing through them or one at a time. Instead, do them on the slow burn and so over time, as you read, watch and listen to the things, you will discover interesting ideas and come up with your own ideas. Some of the time it'll just be go in straight into your my second brain and into the relevant projects. And so over a time, instead of kind of doing a big project, one of the time I am going to or doing all the 10 of this projects in a very small amount. So it is very easy to put together all these small bits and complete the job because I have already done the work over time. It is not heavy lifts that I am struggling with, instead of it slow burn. The sixth one is start with abundance. You should start with abundance. Never think anything is short. In the universe, everything is abundant. So that you should capture the information and start writing the same. Whenever we are writing or creating anything or writing an essay or assignments or presentation or pretty much anything, we all have that issue that we tend to start from a blank page. We have a blank page in front of us and we think, right, this is hard. I have got writer's block. I do not really know what to do. Another main thing in the second brain stuff is that if you have collected all this stuff over a time, all of your inspiration and bits, then you are never really starting from the scratch. You are always starting from abundance. So let us say you are using the Evernote for your second brain or Notion app, and you want to write an article about the motivation of productivity. All you have to do is search the word motivation and automatically you are got like a tons of articles, and you have read and annotated and made your own notes on over last few years. You can just kind of draw from those and take the bits from here and bits from there, and ultimately that will lead to a really nice blog post. The seventh one is intermediate packets. Intermediate packet. Next, we have to the idea of intermediate packets. This is something that I kind of knew intuitively, but I did not really have the terminology back in the days. So, if you imagine, let us say you are a university student and you are writing an essay. We do not usually think of it in a big deal, but actually it is made up of lot of intermediate packets. I used to call them the cotton content blocks in my head when I was in the school writing the lots of essays. It is like your introduction is a block or intermediate packets, which makes it easier to flow the idea in your brain following this intermediate packets. I would memorize the intermediate packets or content blocks, and then I would be able to essentially in my mind drag and drop them into whatever I say or write. For example, the blog post on the 10 principles of building a second brain. Each of these 10 principles are their own intermediary packets, and I know that in the future when I make another blog post, there are surely some aspects of this blog post or some intermediate packets that I can just drag and drop into my other things. So firstly, thinking in that way really helps because it means that it is a lot easier to put the stuff together for your next projects, but also in a way it makes it easier to get started on your current project. You only know what you make. You only know what you make. In the next, we have the idea you only know what you make, and this is like a big part of the building the second brain thing. We can read, watch, and listen to all the stuff that we want. Really, the stuff that we are really going to internalize and that we can feasibly use in our future projects is going to be the stuff that we have created ourselves. So whether that is reading a book and then writing a summary of it, or whether it is listening to podcast and then trickling about it, or even if it is having a random idea and then freshing out that idea into intermediate packets and checking it into the second brains. When we imagine with material ourselves rather than relying on just pre-existing material, we end up becoming much more familiar with it, and that then we can do some interesting creativity or useful things with our that stuff. Make it easier for your future reference or self. The ninth principle is make it easier for your future self. So I will take a little bit of the time right now to write a few notes on it, to shelf it out in my words, so that when the future one comes across this notes on the machine learning, future me will know exactly what current me he was talking about. This will help avoid the frustration of your future self when you look at the concepts you read about the back in the days and think, what the hell does this even mean, because you assumed how too much intelligence on the part of your future self. Keep your ideas moving. Keep your ideas moving. The 10th principle is keep your ideas moving. And the kind of anti-perfectionists take on this, because one of the trap that we can fall into if we are building out a note-taking system is that we can fall into a trap of perfectionist where we think, okay, I have just discovered this digital note taking system. I have watched the tutorial videos and read this blog post on how to use the Notion. I am going to create this elaborate database of all the stuff that I have ever read, and it is going to be have like 18 pieces of meta data assigned for each one. We can get stuff appreciating the intricacies of app and intricacies of our system rather than focusing on what actually matters, which is to keep our ideas moving, then organize it and distill it into our own insight, and then convert it into the creative output. The most important thing is that the output, as it really does not matter what is in your second brain. And now let us understand the four things: the code, capture, organize, distill, and express. These are the easier method to understand and remember. Please capture, then organize, then distill and express, so that people learns from it. Yeah, every time understand it, go through this video on a regular basis so that you get inspired to take the note and create a second brain. Thank you very much. Catch you tomorrow at the same